Hi there, and welcome to this video wherein we will go through each of the practice problems from the data management R code. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and open your package of RStudio that we set up as detailed before. And so this is obviously I've got a number of different tabs open right now, but let's just go ahead and I'm gonna close each of those tabs that I have open for right now, and we're gonna create a new project just like we went through last time. So to do that, we just go to File, New Project, and then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go to an existing directory that is already available. In this case, I have a directory within my folder of my postdoctoral fellowship. And then from here, I'm going to go to where I've created this folder called rhelp. And this is where all my data is stored for everything that I'll be going through here today and in subsequent videos. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open a new sheet from right here. And for this sheet's going to help us answer each of the practice problems that we have set up. So once you are able to get into RStudio and you have everything loaded up, let's go ahead and let's load our data first. So as we kind of went through last time, one way that we can do this is if we just set the working directory and then we go into that working directory and we set up where our data is located. So in this case, if I just go back to rhelp and I just look and I'm like, okay, let's go down to where the YouTube videos are, and I have data and R code listed, and then that's going to be where my data is located. So from here, I'm just going to go in, and then I'm just going to type in the name of the folder, and then that's going to set up my folder for where things are listed. And so once you have that set up, and so as you can see here, there seems to be an issue that I have in terms of where the folder is located. So another way we can do this is we can just go ahead and do this from our actual from the actual folder itself. So once you're able to do this, you can go ahead and you can copy the name of the folder, and we'll just go ahead and we'll copy that in. And it still seems like we're having some issues, so just bear with me 1 second here. And voila, we're able to get it to work. So it might take a little bit of trial and error for you to get everything set up, but once you have this set up, then we can go ahead and we can import our data. And so the easiest way to import data is to just call the actual data set itself using the read Excel command. So if it's not already loaded, then the easiest way to load that is using the pacman function. So to do that, we just load pacman using this command right here, which will allow us to load multiple packages at the same time. And then once we are able to do that, then we'll just call the second command, which will load the packages that we're going to use throughout the course. All right, so let's go through each of the individual questions that we have from our actual practice problem set. So first, just make sure that you've loaded the data themselves. And again, once you've loaded the data using this command right here, then we should have all the data available for us. And as you can see, everything looks like it's okay. So let's just go through that first question. So first, turn sex or gender into a categorical variable. So again, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to create a new type of variable. The way I can do this is I'm just going to call data1, I'm going to create this new variable gender. And then I'm going to use the NA command to bring it up. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just separately call or change the variables that I'm interested in. So in this case, I've got data1 gender, and from here, I'm going to call the variable sex. So as you can see here, and just as a reminder, sex in this case is 0, 1. So we have sex is equal to 0, 1. So I'm going to call 1. In this case, in this case, we're assuming that 1 equals male. And then we're going to separately create another category wherein sex of equal to 0 would be female. Now this is obviously dependent on how you put your data into your data set, but those are our categories that for what we're assuming these data are. Okay, so once that is done and I've run those commands, then I can go ahead and I can view those data. Using the view command if I want. And then we can see that it's going to have values of male, female, just like that. Another way of doing that is just to open the data themselves. And as you can see, it's going down. It's now we have this variable of gender, which goes male, female, all the way through. Okay, next up, we want to answer question number 2, which is reorder the, and let's just make this a little bit larger so we can all see, reorder the education variable with 3 being the lowest, that is high school, and 1 being the highest education. Okay, so for this, we're just going to create, just like last time, a new variable for education. So we already have education in here, and we can just take a look at what that is. And so education just goes 1, 2, 3. So again, we want 3 being lowest education and 1 being highest. And so I'm just going to call this new variable edu. And again, I'm using that NA command to just say that it's a blank slate. So if you want to see what that looks like, then this is just all it looks like. Just a bunch of NAs for right now. And then from here, just like before, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call the original variable of education, and we're just going to label it. So in this case, education equals 3. We're saying that is high school or less. And then data 1 again, edu, data 1, education, that equals 2. And we're just going to label this trade school. And then finally, data 1, edu, one more time. And there we go. And then if we were to just go ahead and run through each of those commands, and we take a look at those data again, we can see that now we have this categorical variable of education. Okay, so next up, we're going to go ahead and let's do question number 3. So this time we're going to try and rename the variable of education v2 into something shorter. That is high school, college, or PhD. So before, just as a reminder, when we had education.v2, we had this variable of education that we just ran through. It's equal to this. Now let's see if we can make this a little bit shorter. So we have edu. Let's try and make these individual categories into something a little bit more succinct. So to do this, we're just going to now call edu.v2, and let's just label that NA. And then from here, we can just copy and paste this just like before, but now we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to copy and paste edu.v2. And then in here, let's just go ahead and copy and paste edu. And now we can copy and paste each of the categories that we had before. And then from here, let's just shorten it down to HS, trade, and uni. And now if we looked back in again, we can see that this is a little bit shorter, but it looks like there's a little bit of an issue in terms of the university. So let's go back and see what the issue is. And if you can't hear, that's my dog groaning in the background. All right, let's try and run this one more time. Perfect. And now we can see that we have, this is a nice shortened acronym for each of our categories. Okay, just a few more questions here. So question number 4 is, let's see if we can rename that variable. So can we rename education v2 .v2 into education? So absolutely, we can do that. So what we can do is, this time we're just going to rename our data. So let's just go ahead and we're just going to call this data 2. That's just so that way we can keep a record. And we're just going to rename from data 1. And we're just going to call the column in particular that we're interested in. So in this case, we're interested in edu. And we want to take edu v2 and we want to change it into edu. So if we go ahead and we run this, and as we can see, there are now 2 different ones that are called the same one. So we have edu.v2 for both of them. Now, if you want to avoid this, we can easily do that by just creating this new column of education.v2. And it looks like it's the opposite right now of what I'm doing, and this is probably because the package, depending on whether the package dplyr is loaded, it changes whether something is going to, the call command has to be first or second. So in this case, I don't have it loaded. So if I were to just change this around and run the same command again, then as you can see, then we get what we were hoping for originally. And now I have this working out quite nicely for data 2 in particular. So with that being said, we're done with that question. Okay, next up. Next, let's try and create meters walked, which is currently in meters, and turn it into kilometers. And we'll call this new variable walked underscore km. So all we got to do for this is we're just going to take that data, same data 2, and let's just create a new category called walked km. And then we're just going to take the original meters walked category. So again, we have that 6-minute walk test category. And you know what, just for simplicity, it might actually be easier at this time to just go ahead and rename that. So we're just going to go ahead and rename this into something else. We'll just rename it meters walked. Okay, and again, as you can see, depending on whether I've loaded dplyr or not, that depends on whether something is needs to be placed first or second. So as we can see here, that meters walk category has now been changed from 6MWT to just meters walked. And I did this in part just so that way it would be easier to call, because before, if there's a number at the very beginning of the call, it makes it very, very difficult to call. You actually have to put apostrophes around it. So let's just go ahead and let's load that data. And now, as you can see, this is just going to be the exact same. So 472 versus 472. But if I divide that by 1,000, then what we should see is now we have this nice in kilometers version. Okay. And last but not least, so just as a reminder, we have time, 3 different time points in these data. So for this last question, make a new data set with only ID, age, sex, education, and walked included, and only include data from time point 2. So in order to do that, what we would do is we're just going to select the variables that we want in this instance. So we can do this first by creating this new data set, data 3. And an easy way to do this is to just subset, use the command subset. And from here, we're just going to subset from data 2. And then we're just going to select our variables using the select command. And so I would just go ahead, an easy way to do this again is if I were to just go ahead and use the call names function for data 2, then I can look in the console at the different variables that I have, and they're all numbered from 1 to 15. And what I can do is I can then just look for ID, age, sex, education, and walked kilometers. So ID is 1, and then age would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then sex is going to be 5. And then let's see. After that, we are interested in education. So let's just go ahead and take 6. And then lastly, we're going to take the last one of walked kilometers, so 15. Now, if the one thing that I do need to be careful of with this is I need to be careful because by doing this, I'm no longer going to have that time command included. So when I want to only include data from the midpoint or time point 2, then I'm not going to be able to call that. So an easy way around this is to actually create another command. So what I would do for this is I would first just go ahead and rename data 3 and from data 2, and I can just do this, and I can take a subset of data 2 and then use time equals 2. And so what that's going to do is that's going to retake data 3, and now I have all those variables included, but as you can see, I only have time point 2. And then I can just rerun that command that I had previously, and now I only have those 5 variables, but as you can see, there's only 40 observations because they're all coming from time point 2. And so that's it in terms of the questions that we have or practice problems that we have from this data management practice problem set. And I will see you in the next video where we'll talk a little bit about descriptive statistics.